It's not a linear story, so you'll have to bear with me while I take you on the journey.
It's all about stories here. Go for it.
And he sends me an SMS that says, monetized PowerPoint. To which I reply, that's dumb. But fast forward 3 years and we've been working on that dumb idea, right? We went to someone who is now one of our competitors and pointed at a charger and we said, how much for that one? I have to be a part of the marketing process. I have to understand that if you don't sell anything, you don't make any money. And if you don't make any money, you can't pay the rent. And for commercial operators, that's a loss because they can't recoup that the cost of that electricity. Sitting back, I can see that he was solving problems for the customer, which is everything, right? In startup world, it's everything.
Just before we get started, if you're enjoying the podcast, can you please make sure you subscribe or follow my channel? This helps me out tremendously. Yasemin Selvi, welcome to the Feral Wisdom Podcast.
Hi, Paul. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you on. So let's just dive right into it. And can you share the story behind founding Alchemy Charge, your company, and what inspired you to create a network of electric vehicle charging stations?
Yep. It's been interesting. We've had it's not a linear story, so you'll have to bear with me while I take you on the journey.
It's all about stories here. Go for it.
So back in 2020, we purchased our first electric vehicle. So with that, we thought, okay, this is where things are heading, and obviously started taking interest, having lots of research conversations before purchasing the car, and then to kind of explain what our professional background, and when I say we, it's myself and my co-founder, who happens to be my husband, Merrick Selvi. Yeah.
And later down, I'll ask you a few questions around that a bit later as well, what it's like working with your husband as a co-founder.
Well, I think he'd say wonderful.
Okay.
So we have a background in remedial building. What does that mean? We fix buildings, we don't build them. Merrick's got 15 years of Strata experience, Strata industry experience. 90% of our customers are Strata buildings, and I've been working with him for 10. Mm-hmm. So we purchased the electric vehicle, already have an established business in remedial building in the Strata space. We kind of thought, perfect. We've got an opportunity here. EV charging in Strata buildings. And we kind of, we set off and we thought, okay, this is it. We've solved all the world's problems. We've got this.
And it's going to be easy. It's going to just be like that, easy ride, right? Like all
100%. Yeah. It was, the writing was on the wall. This was going to succeed from the get-go. But what actually happened was we went to someone who is now one of our competitors and pointed at a charger and we said, how much for that one? We like the look of that one. So we were going to start off with putting one in at our facility in Brookvale. So we're based on Sydney's beautiful northern beaches in Brookvale. And he turned around and he said, guys, don't worry about how much. Tell me how much power you've got access to. So this particular charger that we had pointed to needed a huge amount of power. So it needed 1,000 amp and we only had 300 at our facility. And it was at that point, and we're in industrial Brookvale. We're not fighting for power. The area was set up for this purpose. And we took a step back and thought, okay, the Strata buildings that we service don't have that much power available. And thought, okay, we've got a challenge here. And we stepped back and we spoke to the Strata managers that we work for. We spoke to the committees that we work with. We started asking questions in the, online forums and groups and whatnot about, it essentially became a fact-finding mission. So at the end of that, we came across 4 issues in the Strata space. one, the hardware is expensive. So the cheapest networked charger, which is like a 7 kilowatt charger, is at about $1,800 plus installation. Which leads me to the installation, which it needs to be done by a specialist electrician, and the device needs to be commissioned. The third point was, in some cases, I'm not going to say most because I'm not, this isn't my area of expertise, but there's not enough power coming into the suburb, the street, the block, or the apartment block to service the number of chargers that they would like to install.
Okay.
And the fourth is service and maintenance. So the number one thing that goes on these EV chargers is the cable. The cable gets damaged, so it needs to be replaced, or the whole unit needs to be replaced. There's overlay that with a whole heap of human elements, like the psychology of why should I pay for Paul's charging?
Right.
And yeah, so there was a few challenges that we needed to overcome to be able to have, a successful business in this space.
Yeah, just on that note, like $1,800, that's just like filling up your gas tank 3 times these days. The cost
I
of
would
petrol.
know. I drive an electric vehicle, so I wouldn't know.
Okay.
But I'm told, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was interesting, and we sat back and we looked at what they do over in Europe. So in Europe in general, there's 80% of charging is done at home or at work. And then we dug a little bit deeper. We looked at Norway, who is kind of, the shining star in the EV
They're very
world.
progressive in a lot of areas, like top education system in the world, and they're very progressive.
Yeah, so when it comes to EVs, they're, I think last stats, they were at like 90% of new sales are EVs in Norway.
Wow.
But even going back to 2016, so if I can liken 2016 to where we are in Australia at the moment, 95% of charging was done at home. And of that 95%, 65% was done via the level 1 trickle cable, which is the portable charger that every EV comes with.
Okay.
So we took all that information and we're processing it. And, I get an SMS from Merrick, completely out of context, so you have to cut me some slack. The SMS...
Merrick is your husband?
Yeah, Merrick's the husband / co-founder. He is out getting a haircut. The man has no peace. Not only do we run a couple of businesses together, we've also got 4 children. So in his downtime, he's getting a haircut, and he sends me an SMS that says, monetized PowerPoint. To which I reply, that's dumb. But fast forward 3 years and we've been working on that dumb idea, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So how do you do that? Like, how does that work?
So the average Aussie travels 38 kilometers a day, right? And every EV that is sold in Australia, with the exception of the Model Y at the moment, comes with its own level 1 portable trickle charger. So some of the fact finding was that we kind of asked the question of our networks, how do you charge your electric vehicle? And there was an overwhelming response of, I just plug it into the wall socket.
Right.
And it was at that point that we understood that people just need a PowerPoint. You just need a PowerPoint where you can pay for your electricity usage. And in the Strata scenario, that actually solves a lot of issues. So you don't need to upgrade your infrastructure. You don't need a specialist electrician. You just need a licensed electrician to install a PowerPoint. And you also have the opportunity of using, existing infrastructure, which is traveling with you in the boot of your car.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And I guess one thing I should have added is, how much do you know about EV charging? Do you know that there's 3 levels? So there's level 3, 2, and 1. Level 3?
But I know nothing about it. So.
Okay, cool. Let me help you. So level 3 is the fast stuff. That's what you see on the side of the freeway. Going from Sydney to Brisbane, you can get your battery from 10% to 80% in 18 minutes. Level 2 is what you see more commonly around in places like shopping centres. So if you, my local Westfield has 4 Tesla chargers, and they're all level 2 chargers. And level 1 is the trickle cable, which is what I'm referring to before I get too
And how
technical.
long does that take to charge the trickle?
It depends on your vehicle. It actually improves all the time. To give you an example, we have 2 electric vehicles. One charges at 10 kilometers an hour, and the other via trickle, and the other charges at 20.
10
So as
kilometers an hour.
yeah, that's
Oh, you
right.
get every hour you get 10 kilometers out of it. Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So as battery technology improves, those numbers just keep getting better and better.
Okay. Okay. So that's what you're obviously working on now. So
Yep.
how's that all going?
Better than we could have ever hoped. Once we got over the
Okay.
initial hurdle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're
Okay.
having amazing conversations with Strata buildings. We are having great conversations with other organizations in regards to partnerships. It's
Yeah.
all going swimmingly. We're calling it the calm before the storm. But, yeah. So when the storm hits, it's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
But we're really enjoying, the ramp up.
Okay. Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, it's in a space that's, like you're helping with climate change and all of that as well. Is that something that you've been interested in as well, sustainability and that sort of area, or just like, no, this could be a great business, or was it like helping the environment as well? Like,
Yeah, so I think it's definitely, the sustainability piece is definitely sitting in the back of our minds, especially when we, started the journey. So that's why we purchased our electric vehicle. It was,
okay.
Merrick and I are old enough now and ugly enough not to, we won't do business unless it's a win-win-win, and it has to be a win for us, a win for our customers, and a win for Mother Earth, because she always wins.
Yeah, yeah. Mother Earth needs quite a bit of care at the moment because we haven't looked after her very well.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
it.
now you're involved with because I met you at that climate change, sustainability, climate tech. I can't remember exactly what it
It
was
was
called.
Energy Lab. It was at Energy
Oh, there
Lab.
you go. Close
Yeah.
enough. Energy Lab in Sydney, and there was a talk on there, and a lot of founders in that area. So, do you sort of get involved with that community?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's actually an amazing, exciting, passionate space to be in. So we're members of a group called Climate Salad.
Okay.
And we're actually part of their second cohort for their global growth program. So if anyone's interested, I cannot speak highly enough of Climate
Hmm.
Salad, and it's all in the climate tech space.
Okay, so tell us a bit more about that. What do they do, and do they do funding, or they're just a whole bunch of founders getting together? What is that?
I believe they call it founder led, and I'm sure I'm letting the Climate Salad team down at the moment, not speaking them properly. But it's all about providing assistance, community, mentoring, and they run events and provide opportunities. They do what are they called? We do overseas trips. It's not coming to me. Trade missions. That's it. So
Okay.
yeah, so they facilitate trade missions.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's absolutely wonderful to be a part of. They have monthly member connect calls. A lot of it's done online, so you don't have to physically be somewhere.
Mm.
And as a
And
founder, that's key.
yeah, yeah. So you have that. You're in the climate salad. They're not all vegetarians, are they?
Summer.
Okay. Oh,
There's
it's
a bit of
just
agriculture in there as well. So
yeah,
yes.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, anyone could think, well, maybe it's like a vegan club or something. You know what I mean? But
No, it has an interesting name, doesn't
really,
it?
my kids will be saying, "Dad, that's such a bad dad joke. Just be quiet, then."
Yeah.
But they're not here, so I can do it. Yeah. Yeah. So, and any other communities you're involved with, and how important? Like you're working with your husband, which is
Yes.
awesome.
Yep.
And I don't know how many husband-wife founding teams there are. So the two of you are the founders. Is there any other founders in there?
Just the two of us.
Okay. Okay. And so how do you find that, apart from him thinking you're awesome, of course, and I'm sure you are. But are there any issues around that? Like, like you're home together and you're working together, and like how do
Yeah.
things run? Or yeah,
I think that we're unbelievably lucky in that we can do this. There's, and there's moments where I don't want to. There's moments where we say to each other, that's it, we're not going to talk about work. But then at the same time, there's a lot of, lounge room conversations that don't need to be meetings, because we can just have a conversation about something. There's a lot of, I think there has to be a lot of respect. So I respect what he does. He's the technical guy. He is the nuts and bolts, and at the same time he respects what I do. And I have a background in, I used to have a corporate life, and I have a background in project management, so he understands that that's my area of expertise. So I think that there's definitely, look, it's not sunshine and rainbows every day, but at the same time it's not all that awful either.
Okay. Yeah, there's all different dynamics with founders, and they always say anyway that having a co-founder is like being in a marriage.
Yeah.
So you already are. So there you go. So probably not much difference,
That's it.
Because I felt a bit like that, because you have to rely on so much on that co-founder, and you're talking to them so much about everything, and so yeah, it's interesting that you are actually, and some people used to say, "I said your wife." I said, "No, that's not my wife." So your background is project management. Is it sales as well, or marketing, or any of that sort of area?
No, it was IT project management, would you believe? So yeah, so it's marketing and sales is actually probably the piece that I learned the most when I left my corporate life. So when I left corporate life about 10 years ago, and the reason behind that was I had my dream job. I was the head of a department across Asia Pacific, and lots of responsibility, a really big team, lots to manage, lots of balls in the air. It was truly my dream job, until it was, at that point we had our 18-month-old. And I came home from a trip to Singapore and Korea for 10 days. And Merrick was sick. Alex, our 18-month-old, was sick. And we kind of took a step back and thought, okay, this is not working right now. And, my role was restructured. I left that organization. I joined Merrick's team in his construction business, and the rest is history. But, as a mother, as a woman, it was a decision that was made based on family for us.
Yeah, which is should be always number one. And it's so that dream job, that corporate job, wasn't stressful at all, because I've interviewed so many people that were in the corporate, well, some of the big four and everything else, and all of them worked like maniacs, and they all got burnt out, So that wasn't the case with you?
I enjoyed the pace, and it was very comfortable and natural to me, and I just kind of always ran at that pace. Yes, it was stressful. Yes, it was long hours. But I would be lying if I said that small business or startup is any different to that.
Yeah, I was just going to say, yeah, for a startup world, it can be very similar. And a lot of startup founders, when they begin, they get burnt out as well. They just get too hard, too soon, for too long, instead of pacing themselves. Tell us what you've learned about marketing and sales, like you said, in the last 10 years, because that's an area that I feel, and a lot of others do feel, that is the most important area, because you may have the best product or service or whatever in the world, or SaaS product. If you can't sell it, you can't do anything. And that was my weakness in my startup. I did try and do my sales. We came very close, but couldn't close. Like B2B, I found is really can be really frustrating and difficult because long, sales cycles, and you might talk to one person, but then you're going to talk to a whole lot of others, convince them. And so tell us about your experience and how you learnt, and then what sort of tips you can pass on to others that are new in the space.
So that's actually been my steepest learning curve, sales. So when I had a corporate job, it was, I didn't make the money. I spent the money. I was in project management. I had no I had an understanding, but I don't think I had an appreciation for the fact that sales is everything. Like it was, it was in my corporate life, it was kind of pushed aside. It wasn't to do with me. It was someone else's problem.
As a sales guy, you can do that.
Correct. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
And then you do a little bit of bad mouthing when the sales guys sold something that doesn't exist. So, and you're picking up the pieces and delivering something that doesn't exist yet, which is, part of the excitement and the challenge. But at the same time, I, will be the first to put my hand up and say, I did not respect that part of the cycle enough.
Yeah.
And now I do. Now I have to be a part of the sales process. I have to be a part of the marketing process. I have to understand that if you don't sell anything, you don't make any money. And if you don't make any money, you can't pay the rent.
And did you actually have salespeople approaching you at all? You weren't involved at all in that?
In corporate life?
Yeah. Were you a decision maker with different things?
Yeah.
Different
So I actually sat within sales departments at times. I had salespeople reporting into me. I think I just buried my head in the sand about the intricacies and the art that is known as sales. It's so crazy. If those salespeople could hear me now, they'd be like, I told you.
Yeah. So give us a few examples, like tell us some stories about that experience. Anything that you can remember and you think, oh God, I should have done something else, or
yeah. I can probably say, okay, when I joined Merrick's business and, came in guns blazing, that's it. We're going to get this place into shape and we're going to make a whole heap of money in the process. And, sat down and went, okay, let's look at this process and that process, and let's have these conversations and go and approach these customers, and guns blazing. And he sat back and he was like, Yaz, that's not how it works. We are not a large corporate. We don't have endless amounts of money for marketing and redesigning websites. We need to go out and we need to win the work before we can spend the money. And that's kind of where I went, oh, okay, right. And then having to go out and make the calls and build the relationships, and that's where the art is. That's where the hard work comes in.
Yeah, absolutely. I experienced all of that. It's interesting how you said these guys in the corporate would sell a product that doesn't exist. I think that would be the best sales guy to have in your startup, because instead of, so many people, get like some massive MVP and then it blows out and they do all this development before they even do any sales. But if you could have something really simple, even if they can just sell the idea beforehand, that's absolutely ideal, because then you can start building it. You already got customers. So I think the art of selling something that doesn't exist is actually very valuable in a startup situation.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
Do you know the story of how he did that, or what sort of tactics he used, or selling something that doesn't exist?
Sitting back, I can see that he was solving problems for the customer, which is everything, right? In startup world, it's everything. You need to solve a problem. But in corporate world, you need your solution to fit someone else's problem. So it was a very different, very different approach. But I completely agree. If you have a salesperson who's gone out and solved a problem and come back and said, guys, we need to build XYZ in startup world where you're agile enough, you can make that happen.
Yeah, like it is the most in-demand skill, really. And they say that the best founder combination is somebody on the tech side, developer or CTO, and then sales and marketing person. But I've interviewed some people. Alan Jones, he does a radio show. It's Alan Jones, but not that Alan Jones. So it's not that Alan Jones, another one. And
Fair
if you're in
enough.
Australia, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
He was saying it's actually the product manager that's most important, and he's got a lot of experience in the space. So I can see that as well.
Yep.
But you absolutely, he also does T-shirts just for fun as a hobby, and it says if you think startups is all about the tech, you're wrong. It's all about sales and marketing. So
couldn't agree more.
yeah. So with the charging, what is it again that you're doing now? The charging connectors. Is that
Yes.
something you had to build yourself?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So the piece
Okay.
that we do is, sorry, I should have had one ready on display for you, but what we do is the GPO, so the PowerPoint itself. So you walk up to it, you scan a QR code, and if you don't have an account, you set up an account, and if you do have an account, you just activate your charging session. And if you want to do that for the next, 22 hours, 5 hours, 10 hours, however long you're going to be parked there, then you do so. If you come back to your car early and need to drive away, and you've set it for 10 hours and you've driven away at the 3-hour point, it will prorata, so it'll cut off your charging session at that point. So it's a physical stop. At the end of your session, you pay for your usage, and your host gets reimbursed for their power.
And do you have to actually get an electrician to install these?
Yes. Yep, they're hardwired in. So
Okay.
any licensed electrician can install it.
And where do you get these power points? Are they power things?
Yeah.
Where are they made?
They're assembled here in Australia. We do it in Brookvale. So we're proudly Australian designed, Australian assembled.
Okay.
And yeah, it's a matter of pre-configuration. So we do a bit of a pre-configuration for you when you order one. You can jump online, you can ask for a quote, and you take it from there.
Okay. And I mainly talk to people in the startup space that have like a SaaS product, or they have services and that's the type of thing. Not many people with hardware, and there's unique problems sometimes and things that you need to overcome when it is a hardware product. And so what are some of the challenges that you faced actually having a hardware product and having to build it and all of that? So tell us about that.
So as a part of the design process, we wanted to keep we wanted local suppliers, and we could have gone overseas and gotten significantly cheaper options, but we wanted to keep everything local. So our supply chain is in Australia to overcome any issues, with shipping or pricing or currency exchange rates, etc.
Yeah.
So that was definitely an element that we looked into. And we also so our casing is the Schneider range. And the reason behind that is that they have, they've obviously certified in everything in all sorts of countries all across the world, the European certifications, but it's also the environmental aspects that take into consideration. Something as simple as the packaging that our sockets come in at end of use, have X% that can be recycled. When the product is end of life, it can be repurposed. It was all things that we, from the sustainability angle, wanted to take into consideration.
Yeah, and I've heard Snyder is a really good company in that aspect, sustainability, really high quality products, and they're
Yes.
very much focused on all of that.
Yeah.
They do a lot of good things in the space.
Yeah.
And
And
so,
you don't want something that's going to burn someone's house down, right? Controversial.
no, I don't think that would be very good.
No,
Yeah,
not ideal.
yeah, yeah. Like, yeah, obviously, being electricity and all, it's something have to take great care with and have the best quality. Because
Yeah.
I mean, these days you even hear about electric batteries, like on e-bikes and that, catching on fire,
Yep.
and you could burn down like a whole unit or a house, or there's been some injuries from that.
Yeah,
But that I don't
definitely.
know. I don't know if it's the quality of the battery or the charging, but yeah, it's obviously an area you've got to be super, super careful about and have the highest quality. So that's
Yeah, and
great.
there's a lot of, of course, it makes the news. There's a lot of conversation around this, and we actually speak to an organisation called EV FireSafe.
Okay.
And if you want to reach out to them and ask them any questions around EV fire safety, the batteries, the charging methods, they have all the data, and
Mm. Mm.
it's batteries that spontaneously catch fire versus impact, so accidents and what happens in those scenarios, because
Yeah.
it can definitely be sensationalized.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, it'd be good to, like, if they say if we're going to buy an e-bike or something, to
Yep.
find out, how reliable that is and if it's made with the quality components, I guess.
Yep.
All right. So, where are you going from here? Where's your company, your startup going from here? Are you going to be going overseas as well?
Yeah, so I guess good salespeople. We've had opportunity over in the US. So we've just finalized testing our US sockets, so our US product. They
Yeah.
have different power requirements than we do here in Australia. We've got a decent amount of interest and demand in Asia, mainly
Yeah.
because you look at some of these Asian countries and they are electrifying their scooters, their motorbikes, their tuk-tuks.
Mm.
And that's, of course, that's a different charging scenario again. So, yeah, so we've hopefully got some international moves coming, but our focus at the moment is the Australian market, and three areas that we've had the most interest in, which is obviously Strata. Our product was designed for Strata.
Yeah.
And second is commercial car parks. So if you go to any commercial car park in Australia, I guarantee you there will be an electric vehicle with its portable cable plugged into a power cord. And for commercial operators, that's a loss because they can't recoup the cost of that electricity.
Yeah.
So it's lots of conversations that are being had with commercial car parks. And the third, interestingly, has been short-term rentals like your Airbnbs.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah, that's kind
Yeah.
of our focus at the moment.
So it's a big market, really. It's huge, and it's only going to grow, isn't it? Like electric vehicles, they're only going to grow. Like, I think in
Yeah.
Australia in 10 years, most cars will probably be electric. That's
Yeah,
that's
that's
what
it.
they're
And
saying.
with the net zero targets, it's
Yeah.
100% zero emissions in transportation by 2050.
Okay. Yeah. So you're in a real growth area. So, how have you funded your startup? If you've gone for investment or you're bootstrapped?
We're crazy enough to be bootstrapped. Yeah,
Not
so we're
necessarily. They say, like, if you can bootstrap, usually it's a better option. So,
Yeah, we've been lucky enough, and
yeah,
it will get to a point, and I think it'll come soon where we, like I said, the calm before the storm, and we will start our funding process.
yeah.
And we're getting some really good advice around that at the moment.
Hey.
But it's for us, it won't be just about the dollars. It'll be true partnership.
Yeah, I think that's so important. Like, you just don't go with anybody. When it comes to investment, you got to get the person that's the right fit for you, that you can benefit from and they can benefit from. And usually,
That's it.
obviously, somebody in that space with the right contacts as well. All those sort of considerations are really important. And,
That's
you
it.
know, how good they are of an investor and what their record is. And there's
Yep.
so many things. So I guess you're looking at all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. So, coming back to win, 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 it has to be a win for everyone involved. And the term that I've actually recently heard is it's easier to get married than divorced. So, so yeah, so
That's so
you,
true. That's
yeah,
so
so
true.
you want to
Because
find the right
when you're in
partner.
love, you know, everything is flowery and wonderful, you know, divorce. Oh, yeah. So,
Yeah.
yeah, you don't want a divorce happening with your investors as
No,
well.
definitely not. And not with my co-founder either, actually.
Yeah, that'd be a real divorce.
Yeah, that's it. Well, we've
You
been
don't want
married
that to
for
happen.
17 years now. We're 4
Okay.
children deep. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. I think it's wonderful that your husband is your co-founder and you guys get along and everything's working well. That's awesome.
yeah.
All right. Well, startup world is hard enough. It's pretty grueling, and then having 4 kids on top. So, how do you maintain your mental health and your wellness? Like, what do you do?
Good question. I actually, I believe that it's all about your tribe. So it's about having that support network, and it's about having, I would love to say that I just do it all on my own. I'm Wonder Woman, but I'm not. I'm not.
Yeah.
We have an amazing support network around us.
Okay. Okay. And yeah, any like, do you sleep well? You eat well? You exercise? Any of those sort of things?
Oh, look, I try to do all of that, but
Yeah.
not enough hours in the day. And
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
recently started doing the steam room to ice bath, that
Ah.
little, the hot
Yeah.
cold therapy. I'm
Yeah.
not even sure what it's called, but um, and that's interesting. It's not
Yeah.
comfortable, but nor is startup life.
Yeah, but they say if you do things that are always easy, you don't really get any satisfaction. Like I go bike riding once a week, and I do like 30, 40 Ks, and feel a bit tired at the end, but it's a real satisfaction, and you feel good. Other than,
Yeah,
to be honest, like if I had a electric bike and I'm just sort of cruising, that's nice, but
yeah,
like the more effort you put in, the more satisfaction I think you have at the end as well. And the
yeah.
ice bath and jumping in the sauna, it's supposed to be very good for you as well. So
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, and
Yeah.
that's it. And that's kind of someone once said to me, it's only hard the first time you do it, right? So
Okay.
it's
And
only
how many times have you
uncomfortable.
done it?
I've done it a handful of times. It's not getting
Okay.
easier, but hopefully it will. But like even if you liken it to coming on podcasts, next time I do this, it'll be
Oh,
easier.
that's not like
Or
an ice bath. That's more like a sauna, nice and relaxing, have a
that's
chill
it.
conversation.
A
No
little bit of a
ice baths
massage.
here.
I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so to finish off, during all this, doing your startup and all of that, what have you learnt about yourself?
Okay. I have learnt that I am resilient. So I think you have to be really quite resilient. Having not done the sales piece, like in my corporate life, being okay with hearing no, even though you've poured your heart and soul into something.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the biggest lesson.
So, all right. Well, look, it's been great interviewing you, and you're doing something really good in the sustainability space. And
Thank you.
I wish you every success in the future with yourself and your husband. And thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Amazing. Thank you. Thanks for having a chat and maybe making me think back and realize a couple of things myself.
All right, it's been a pleasure.
Awesome.
All right.
Thanks, Paul.